watch me go through a rental property or prospective rental property and analyze it and see whether or not it's going to be a deal, quote unquote, a deal for me. Again, not investment advice. We're just going to go through a live exercise. And today I was in Leavenworth, Kansas. And just for those of you that have not seen our latest podcast episodes, today I just released one with Joe. Great one. I mean, he talked about how he broke into affordable housing from just going from duplex, fourplex, and then all the way to 80 units, learning about commercial space. That's a good one. But today in Kansas, if you ever want to watch a podcast that I did with a GC right in the Kansas City market, including Kansas on the Johnson County side, well, Tyler mentioned about Leavenworth. So I said, okay, let me go check out this neighborhood in Leavenworth, Kansas. Okay. So this is just slightly northwest of Kansas City Metro. All right. So I found this property, 301 Lynn Street, Linn. This is a four bed. Don't know how many bathrooms it is. I don't know why, but when I looked at the description, it says that there's one main floor unit, 301A. It's two bedrooms. This is a converted duplex on a corner lot. Great. And access to a screen and back porch and basement. So there's a basement with that. Upstairs basement, upstairs unit is a one bedroom, one bath unit. So interesting. Let me kind of take a look at this property. Right next to the river. What is this? Is that a concrete mixing company? What is that? What is that? It is a concrete supplier. So I wonder what it's like to live next to a concrete supplier. Now, I don't know this area really, really well, but what I typically like to do is I want to ask or see if there's like a gas station nearby. Donald's Pizza, Pizza Hut. And what I like to do is just do a quick search on neighborhood. Go too much towards neighborhood. And the reason I'm looking at the word neighborhood, sometimes if you're at a gas station or you see a gas station and you type in the word neighborhood, and they'll say like, "Oh, this place is so shady," blah blah blah. You normally see that in there. So this is the only reason why I'm kind of going through and trying to see what's around here in this area. But for the most part, this looks like it's like a main strip right here that this house is centered near. So that's a plus because then you can kind of quickly go in and out of multiple places. So, okay, not a bad neighborhood from what I quickly see. What's happening on the street view? Let's take a look at that. Properties on corner lot. Do I see any boarded up homes? I don't see anything. All right. So the next thing I need to do is look up Leavenworth County Housing Authority payment standards. And I like to just kind of quickly see when I can see anything in there. So they're not listed like we normally saw for Johnson County Housing Authority. So I'm going to look up affordablehousing.com. I'm going to go to the market rent estimator. I'm going to go to the owner section, go to the rental estimate right here, plug in the address, and I'm going to take two numbers here, okay? Remember, there is a one unit that's two bedrooms and another unit that is one bedroom. So I'm going to see what the average rent is right here for a property that's two bedroom, 1,022. Let me write this one down. 1,022 for a two bedroom. And that was based on, let's see, what radius is that? 0.5 mile radius. So that's pretty close mile radius, right? So now I need to get it for one bedroom. So change that to one bedroom. And let's see what it says here. 1,013. Whoa. Is there no premium to go? Is there no premium to go a little bit? This is within a 0.76 mile radius. Interesting. 0.76. So even though I underwrite this as a market rent, I'll do 1,013 plus 1,022, 1,013 plus 1,022. Okay, so I will get a total of roughly 2,035 rent for this property specifically. Okay, now that I have these few figures here, I'm going to go ahead and plug in some more numbers. All right, this property, let's kind of look this up, listed for $170,000. 170,000. Now, for my rehab, let's go to my rehab calculator and take a look at the photos. If you look through the photos for this property, I mean, the outside could use a little bit of love. I mean, the inside, the walls like that, I would probably just repaint it, to be honest with you. Carpet, I'm ripping that out right away. I like to kind of get things to be as new as possible because I want to make sure I can cover. Kitchen's okay. I mean, nothing like absurd. I mean, could I replace the flooring? Yes. This must be the basement. This must be the one bedroom. Interesting. I'll probably replace the stove because I don't really like the stove like that. And I don't like that there's no counter space. So yeah, I don't love that it cooks like that, to be honest. And that microwave is just in a weird position. So if I can, I'll try to renovate that. So let me put in some numbers here. Let's go to my rehab calculator. At the minimum, I'm going to do a full cosmetic rehab, which means I'm repainting the entire house. 1651 square foot. Let's do it. So I'm going to assume I need to replace the roof because I'm assuming it's going to die at some point. And then I am going to put in 1651, excuse me, for my paint. I think when Tyler talked about it was about 355 square foot. I'm gonna do 375 square foot. And then for my flooring, I'm gonna do LVP on the entire house. I want to have this stuff in place. Kitchen, I'm gonna assume I need to replace the kitchen on one of them. So medium appliances, I'm gonna do some replacements for that. Cabinets, one of them was fine. So maybe I just need to repaint about the cabinets on one of them, on one of the properties. I mean, on one of the units, excuse me. I want to renovate both of the bathrooms to make them super modern and super nice. And the reason I'm doing this is because I want to start attracting the best of the best in that population, right? There's a reason that this is a duplex. And if you aren't attracting a great sort of tenant that has pride in where they live, you're naturally just going to get problems in that house. It's 2 units, but if they're not happy with one another, I mean, it's not going to be a good time because you're going to be hearing it. So I want to put in a new HVAC unit, a new air duct work. I'm gonna put in a cage for the HVAC unit, make sure no one can steal it. I don't know how the plumbing is working right now, so I'm assuming it's working because someone's living there. So I'm not gonna replace all the plumbing. I'm assuming the electrical is fine as well, but I can always add that back in later if I notice any issues after the repair. So I got easily already $90,000 of rehab, and that's for me to turn this into like a really, really nice rental, right? But is it worth it? Let's take a quick look. At 2035 for my monthly income rent, let's see what my expenses are. If I have $145 in property taxes, let's go here, 145. And then I have my insurance for 110. That's going to equals to 110 times 1.2. That's going to equals to 132. Boom. And I'm multiplying it by 1.2 because I want to add a 20% premium to the property. And that allows me to figure out and accommodate that more likely than not, I'm going to see a premium compared to an insurance policy if it was for primary residence. So I'm assuming it's a rental property. So that's why I'm adding a 20% premium because typically insurance companies view it as a riskier asset. Then down here, I'm setting aside 10% of my rents for maintenance every single month, right? And that's because you know something's going to break at that home at some point. Even if you replace a bunch of new things, well, in this case, I wasn't replacing electrical. So maybe at some point I got to replace the electrical panel. So if I don't set aside this money right now, I'm honestly, that money doesn't even belong to me. But I got to set this aside money right now so that I don't underestimate my expenses and overestimate my profitability, which is a big no-no, right? So I got 10% set aside for maintenance, right? Don't ever trust any guru out there that tells you I am investing in turnkey property, so there's no maintenance. A whole load of garbage. Don't ever believe them, right? This property right here, tons of rehab I'm gonna do, all cosmetic. But hey, chances are I'm gonna do some internal items that's gonna make it a little bit nicer. All right, so let's keep going. I got 10% for my property management expenses, and you can self-manage the property. Absolutely, you can. But my recommendation is if you don't underwrite and you don't analyze the property by setting aside expenses for property management, then you will never, ever be able to get out of that job. And I would argue that most of us get into real estate because we're pursuing time, freedom. I mean, if you don't underwrite this property, With property management, you will never be able to offload that work. So make sure you underwrite with that and make sure the numbers still make sense to you. For vacancy, I got 5% because I believe that everybody moves out at some point. And right now, if there are truly 2-year work requirements for people, I mean, then they're moving out like every 2 years. So you got to set aside some money right now for those situations. So for my down payment in F19, I'm putting 25% down. So my down payment is going to be equals to my listing price in B4 times my 25% down. That's 42,500. I got 3.5% for closing costs, 92 grand for renovations. And then for my interest rate, let's go to 7% right now. That's probably what's likely going to be. At 7%, what are we going to do? 7% interest rate, I'll be borrowing 127,500. That's B4 minus my down payment amount. So I would cash flow $400 a month after my expenses if I rent this out as a 2+1, right? And that will give me 2,035 a month. I will cash flow $400 a month, and that is a 3.41% return, assuming I bought this property for $170,000 with a $92,500 rehab. Great. So that's my estimate, right? Now let's do a couple of scenarios. Let's say I'm targeting, and again, I'm not saying 8% is a magical number, but let's say I want to get an 8% return on my capital. In that situation, watch what happens to my cash and cash return number in E9 as I lower the price in B4. If I lower this to 150 grand, now I'm at 4%. If I lower it to 130 grand, I'm at 5.6. If I lower it to 110, I lower it to 100 grand, 95. Cool. So at 95 grand, I would be able to achieve my target 8% return for that property. So I'm going to write this one down. Now, I'm not saying they're going to accept your offer of 95 grand, but at least now you know what you're doing, right? Emotions aside, you're keeping yourself very objective and saying, hey, this is what's going to happen. Now, let me do one more thing. Let's say your rehab, let's say I overestimated rehab. I was like way too conservative. And this is only 2/3 of what it was, times 0.67. Now my rehab is 61 grand, 62 grand, let's make it even. Well, now all of a sudden I can afford to pay a lot more for this property because my cash out of pocket for the renovations is a lot lower. So let's say now I'm going to 115 grand, 125. Boom. Now I could be willing to pay 125 grand for this property, assuming I'm only renovating this property for $62,000 now instead of 92 grand. Assuming everything else stays constant, 25% down, 7% interest rate. I'm still renting it as 2+1. But now I'm cash flowing 626 a month, and that gets me to that 7.7% return, which rounds up to 8. Cool. Let me show you one more scenario. Let's assume everything stays constant. Let's say your interest rate dropped to 6.5%, which can happen overnight, right? If I drop to 6.5% overnight, I might be willing to pay 130 grand. Boom, still works, right? So just because my interest rate dropped 0.5 point from 7 to 6.5%, assuming everything else stays constant from the last scenario, I can pay 130 grand for the same property. Assuming I'm still renting out for 2+1, and now I'm cash flowing $633 a month, because that's going to yield a 7.7% return again. So this is my goal for you to figure out how to assess all the different levers on how you can look at a deal. I'm purposely looking at all these different scenarios on what could make it a deal, quote unquote, for you. Now, some people, they might not even care about cash flow. They might say, hey, I want to buy a property. If I just break even, who cares? But I'm buying $1 million property and it's going up by 5% appreciation here in Southern California. They're like, I'm good. That's $50,000. Who cares about $700 cash flow? They honestly might not care because they're investing for a completely different strategy. Now, could you mix and match and have a diversified approach in portfolio? Absolutely. But this is just one way for you to think about it. All right. Hopefully, this is helpful for everybody. My goal is this. I hope you copy my homework today, right? Look at the same deal I looked at today. This is 301 Lynn Street. It's on the market. I just looked it up because I told you, if you looked at my latest podcast I did with Tyler Aiken, you have a contractor now on who to call if you're in Kansas City, and go from there. Go from there. And then if you guys want to copy the spreadsheet, just go to affordablehousing.io, not .com, go to the get deal analysis tool and plug in your name, your email, your phone number. That's the fastest way for you to get a copy spreadsheet. And I hope you copy my homework, honestly. Just put it on your own YouTube channel, because at some point, someone's going to ask you, hey, why do you think this is a deal? And you can just copy my homework, repeat word by word until you get your own way and your own style of analyzing. And you can say, hey, I know that this is a deal because I've been looking at properties for the past 753 days in a row. Might that give you some confidence that you know what you're doing? I certainly hope so. All right. I hope you all have an amazing Monday. I hope you all spend some quality time with your family and friends today, because that's what life is all about. And hopefully we went through a couple of different levers. And the last thing I want to share with you is, if you don't know what's happening, especially with the macro market, follow the 10-year yield. Follow the 10-year yield. And this is not because I'm telling you to follow what's happening with the Federal Reserve, because the Federal Reserve is actually a lot later. The 30-year mortgage interest is affected by two things. One is the interest rate on the 10-year yield, which I have up on the screen right now, which is at 3.98. It just fell below that whole number, that resistance number. A year ago, I mean, within the last month, last year, it went as high as 4.8%, right? And if you understand that the last factor it's affected by is the spread between the 10-year yield and the 30-year mortgage interest rates. Now, historically, that spread of the 10-year yield and the 30-year mortgage interest rates has been about 1.5 to 2%. But it's gone as high as like 2.5, 3%. That's when you saw interest rates as high as, what was that, 8 in the 8s? And that's when you really saw like complete pause in the market for housing. But this is why you got to follow it, because if there's more confidence that the trade deals are happening, well, all of a sudden that spread's going to narrow. When there's more uncertainty, that spread's going to keep spreading. I think it went as high as like almost high fives in the 1980s. That's when you saw interest rates in like the 18s. That's ridiculous. But now you see the spread has come down to about 2.2%. So that's almost like within the normal range of 1.5 to 2. So you see some of your biggest movements of interest rates has already happened. And that's because of the future expectation of what's happening with interest rates, right? Bond traders always move faster than the Federal Reserve. So when you hear on the news that, oh, the Federal Reserve is going to cut rates, the bond traders, they already estimated that probability, and they already made the decision on what to do. And they start trading your bonds, which is your 10-year treasury yields, based on what they're expecting. So that's why you see all these moves. That's why you see the 10-year yield go all the way down from like the 4.8 in the last 12 months to now to 3.8. It's dropped like by 0.8 points. That's a whole point interest rate. And that's because the Federal Reserve has only cut rate once, right? But it's because of the future expectation of a cut in interest rates by the Federal Reserve that the bond trade is already ahead of it. So just remember, the Federal Reserve is slow. Don't follow the headline news. You got to pay attention yourself to what's happening to the 10-year yield and the 30-year mortgage rates. Because when something as simple as interest rates drop by half a point, now all of a sudden, your buying power went up by $5,000. And that can happen overnight. So this is why I'm teaching you all the different levers that you can pull to determine what makes it a deal for you, including the renovations, the listing price, the interest rates, all the expenses, right? For the people that are being silly, they're like, oh, you know what? I'm not going to underwrite with any property management. Well, yeah, that's a great deal, but you just bought yourself a job. So did you really get passive income in that scenario? Probably not. So this is why I want to share all these steps with you, so that you can figure out what's appropriate for you and apply that to your own portfolio strategy. All right. Have an amazing Monday, everybody. I'll see you all tomorrow for day 7.